Folks, during the spring and autumn period, there was a king of the U state named Gall. After losing a battle, he actually slept on a pile of brushwood and licked a bitter gallbladder every day. Do you think he was torturing himself? In fact, he was biding his time to unleash a major plan that would make his enemy regret what they'd done. Fu Chai, the king of the Wu state, humiliated Gall after winning the battle, saying, "If you want to live, be my servant." Gall looked at his fallen soldiers, clenched his teeth, and agreed this kneel was not an admission of defeat, but an act of forbearance. When serving as a servant in the Wu state, Gall swept the steps and did dirty work every day. Even when others splashed sewage on him, he said nothing. Do you think he was cowardly? Actually, he was harboring a grudge, engraving every humiliation deep in his heart. The most heart-wrenching part was when Fu Chai fell ill. Gall took the initiative to taste Fu Chai's stool to diagnose his illness. Just imagine how humiliating that was. But Gall did it anyway. Fu Chai was moved by his loyalty and eventually let him return to the U state. When Gall returned to Yu, he didn't even have a carriage. He picked up a handful of his hometown soil and pressed it to his chest, with only one thought in his mind: I must take revenge and make the U state strong. Minister Wenjong told him that the state treasury was empty and the people had no food to eat. Without hesitation, Gall said, "Tear down my royal bedroom and turn it into a granary." As for himself, he found a shabby room and only placed a pile of brushwood inside that was his bed. From that day on, Gall slept on the brushwood pile every night. The first thing he did when he woke up was lick the bitter gallbladder hanging on the wall. He wanted to remind himself, the hardships he endured back then must not be in vain. During the day, Gall went to the fields to plow. When the people saw their king working in the fields, they also picked up their hoes. He said, "Let us farm together, we'll have food next year." With the king taking the lead in working, the people of Yu gradually began to see hope for a better life. When training soldiers, Gall was just like an ordinary soldier. He held a spear and stabbed straw dummies, and didn't rest even when he was sweating profusely. Fan Li tried to persuade him to take a break, but Gall said, "The soldiers are all training, why should I rest?" He wanted the army to know that their king was fighting alongside them. Minister Wenjong brought him intelligence, saying that Fu Chai spent every day drinking and indulging in pleasure, and his army had become slack. Gall slammed his desk and said, "The time to take revenge is almost here." He licked the bitter gallbladder and felt that finally, a glimmer of hope was breaking through the bitterness. 2 years later, the U state had a bumper harvest, and the people voluntarily donated grain to the army. Gall bowed to thank them, knowing in his heart, "It's not that I'm powerful, it's that the people are willing to fight alongside me." On the day of the expedition, Gall held up his sword and shouted, "The Wu state has bullied and humiliated us. Today, we will avenge our shame." The soldiers' battle cries almost shook the military camp. This resolve had been pent up for a full 3 years. The soldiers of Yu charged forward like fierce tigers, and the Wu army couldn't hold them back at all. Fu Chai initially watched with arrogance, but later his face turned pale with fear. He never imagined that Gall, whom he had bullied so recklessly back then, would become so powerful. Fu Chai knelt down and begged for mercy, saying he was willing to be Gall's servant. Gall shook his head and said, "When I was humiliated back then, did you spare me?" This time, it was Fu Chai's turn to taste the bitterness of defeat. Later, it became an idiom, which refers to enduring humiliation, working hard to strengthen oneself, and finally achieving one's goal.